hearing to order, and begin by introducing the people on the panel. Let's start with Member Dave Elliott and Member Eric Beauregard, Recording Secretary Diana Basu, and myself, Angie Demery. I'll be acting chair for this evening. Okay. Oh, and we have Member Gary Bruno arriving.
I'm helping somebody up the elevator.
There we go.
Around the corner.
So we absolutely do have quorum. Okay. So tonight we have one application we'll be hearing, and the following will be the procedure for tonight's hearing. There are copies of notices on the desk at the front of the, is it at the front or are they at the back?
Just right there.
Right here at the front? Okay, at the front of the room for your reference. A couple of housekeeping items. Please turn cell phones off or place them on silent mode. When asking questions, please address the questions through the chair, not directly to the person being questioned. First order of business will be for the committee members to disclose any pecuniary interests or conflicts of interest with the applications on tonight's agenda. Do we have any conflicts? Member Beauregard?
Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to declare a conflict on item 5.1 application A09-23-PC, as I'm employed by Upper Canada Consultants and the applicant is a client of the firm.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. All right, when the hearing is heard, or it's begun, when the application is heard, a request will be made for any deferrals or withdrawals on the application for the agenda, on the agenda. The committee's secretary-treasurer will read out loud each application noted on the agenda with a brief description and staff recommendation. The applicant or agent for the applicant will be asked to step forward to the table at the front and introduce themselves and be allowed a short overview explaining the details of the additional information with regard to why the application is being made if desired. Members of the committee will then have an opportunity to ask the applicant any questions they may have, followed by members of the public who wish to speak to this application. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this application will be asked to come forward, state their name, address, and limit their comments to 10 minutes and must present all questions or comments pertinent to the application at that time, in that time frame. Persons making a presentation may not necessarily be allowed to return again to speak on this application. Following all comments, the applicant will be afforded a closing comment if desired. The committee will then present a decision in the form of a motion. The motion will be discussed and voted upon. If a vote is tied, the motion will be defeated and a new motion will be made. If a motion is defeated, new motions will be made until the decision has been reached. Notice of decision will only be provided to those persons who leave their names and addresses in writing with the Secretary-Treasurer, and the sign-in sheet is in the front of the room. Okay. You can also call or email diana.vasu@portcolborne.ca or call 905-835-2900 extension 204 immediately following the hearing and leave a message. It should also be noted that in order to be kept advised of any possible Ontario Land Tribunal or OLT hearings, persons must request and be sent a copy of this committee's decision on an application. Trusting everyone understands the process, I would like to ask for any conflicts with tonight's application. Seeing none. Are there any requests? I would ask if you would like to request a deferral or withdraw your application. No? Thank you. Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please read out the application.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. The following correspondence concerns application A09-23-PC. In the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 as amended and Section 3.7B, 3.11.1A, 3.12 AII, and 24.3G of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended, and in the matter of the lands legally known as Concession 2, part of Lot 24 in the City of Port Colborne, located in the Highway Commercial Zone municipally known as 401 Main Street East, and in the matter of an application by the agent Amrit Pal Bansal on behalf of the applicant 2472131 Ontario Inc. for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13 to permit a reduced driveway width, rear yard setback, landscape buffer, and setback of a drive-through to a residential zone notwithstanding the following. Number 1, that a minimum driveway width of 2.69 meters be permitted, whereas 7.5 meters is required. Number 2, that a minimum rear yard setback of 2.46 meters be permitted, whereas 5 meters is required. Number 3, that a minimum landscape buffer of 0 meters be permitted along the northerly property line, whereas 3 meters is required. Number 4, that a minimum landscape buffer of 1.14 meters be permitted along the southerly property line, whereas 3 meters is required. Number 5, that a minimum landscape buffer of 1.67 meters be permitted along the westerly property line, whereas 3 meters is required. Number 6, that a 1.14 setback from a drive-through to a residential zone be permitted, whereas 7.5 meters is required. A notice of the application was circulated to the public on March 30th, 2023, and the required agencies on March 13th, 2023. It should be noted that on the application, as well as the notice that was circulated, the legal description for the subject lands read Concession to Lot 21, whereas the legal description should read Concession to part of Lot 24. This correction will be reflected in the notice of decision and all subsequent documents relating to this file. As of today, the following comments have been received. No objections from the fire department, the drainage superintendent, nor the engineering technologist were received. No comments from the public were received. Given the information in the planning report regarding application A09-23-PC, planning staff recommend application 09-23-PC be granted for the following reasons. Number 1, the application is minor in nature. Number 2, it is appropriate for the development of the site. Number 3, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Number 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan. And that concludes the correspondence of this application.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, number 1 was 6.29 meters. I think you said 2.69 meters.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, just to be clear. So it is 6.29 meters. All right, thank you very much. And we would ask the applicant or an agent for the applicant to step forward. Okay, and is there anything you'd like to add?
Nope, everything seems to be on point. Yeah, no issues on our sides. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any of the committee members have any questions to the applicant? Member Elliott?
Thank you, Chair. I guess not as much as a question as a comment. With regards to the southerly border, where you're going to touch up against the property that's zoned residential, where it looks like where the cars are coming through on the drive-through, so they will be going south, correct, towards the residential property, and then turn back up to pick up.
Yeah.
The more that I was thinking about it, the more I would like to see, have you planned on putting a fence or a barrier so that the headlights don't shine through if it's dark out? And also, if there's any lighting that is along that portion of the property that the lights shine in so they don't cast off into the residential property behind you or south of you. Those would be two recommendations that I would put forth. Other than that, I don't have any problems with it, unless you want to put some planters out on the on the Highway 3 instead of having a buffer. You could pretty it up that way. But other than that, no, I'm all good. Except I would just like to protect the residential property on the south.
Absolutely. We've definitely taken that into consideration. We're going to be putting it into our next phase of submissions of drawings. No issue with the fence. And as for the lighting, I'm pretty confident when looking at the lighting plan that everything is facing in towards the property, so there shouldn't be any light pollution happening for any of the residential areas that may surround us in the near future. Yeah. Absolutely, and thank you for the suggestions for the natural beautification. We're working on it.
Thank you. Any other members? Member Bruno?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look forward to seeing this development come to fruition. I just wanted to ask you, with the entrance exit on Highway 3, Main Street, is that closer to the current SO sign with the prices on it? Like, are you taking that as far as you can?
Yes.
Away from the intersection?
Absolutely. So our mindset with that specifically was that the one entrance, when you look at the drawing there that faces 3 in the intersection. So the entrance closest to the intersection, it's as of right now, it's a little bit of an issue because you don't really have an opportunity to get into the property without causing a little bit of havoc.
Exactly.
So we're going to be eliminating that entrance and exit altogether. We've communicated with the MTO regarding that, and they've signed off on the direction we're headed. So we've got that on paper. And then as for the second entrance and exit that's closer to the price sign. Yeah, so as of now, it's technically closer to the price sign, but we'd like to push it as far as we can because it makes sense to be able to give the road traffic, an ample amount of time to be able to get into the property without impeding traffic behind them.
The other reason I was asking that is on exiting there. The further you're that way, the less awkward it is if you're trying to get into the right-hand turning lane off of number 3 to onto 140. And I know when I've come out of there, like you're less distance to the intersection. You get a car coming the other way. You're trying to make sure you swing around the curbing there. So yeah, I mean, I think that especially with I think the flow put here will be a lot greater than it is now. Once you have the restaurant there. So very good. I like the plan that more people will be entering off of Elizabeth Street rather than number 3.
You know what, the preference is definitely that, which is why we've asked for that second, the opening of that other entrance and exit that we have on that property. Ultimately we're trying to avoid bumper cars in that whole area, and you go by there all the time. It's incredibly busy, that intersection. So
Yep.
The quicker that we can get people rolling through without
The better.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing that there's no other questions, we're all good? Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak to this? No? All right. No members of the public? All right. So, do I have a motion? Member Bruno?
Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect to application A09-23PC, in the matter lens known as concession 2, part of lot 24, municipally known as 401 Main Street East. The application, it's minor variance application A09-23PC, be granted for the following reasons. 1, The application is minor in nature as the decreased driveway width would allow for approximately sized parking stalls. Appropriately sized parking stalls. The reduced landscape buffer would increase the parking and drive-through safety, while potential nuisances would be mitigated through site plan requirements. The reduced rear yard setback facilitates an appropriate fire route, and the reduced setback of a drive-through to a residential zone would reduce traffic congestion on the site. 2 is appropriate for the development of the site as the variances are being requested to accommodate a permitted use on the subject property and are required to reduce traffic congestion and ensure that structures on the site are adequately spaced. 3 is desirable compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The proposal complies with the purpose of the provisions from which relief is being requested, ensuring that there will not be a negative impact on traffic safety, fire, and emergency servicing, nor neighboring properties. 4 is desirable in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as commercial uses are permitted in the highway commercial designation established in the official plan.
Thank you, Member Elliott, for seconding that. All in favor? Okay, that would be unanimous. There we go. Motion is carried, and you will sign the appropriate documents. Okay.
Oh, this one too, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We're all going, that's going to go to you anyway, so there you go. All right. Okay. There you go. All right. Okay. All right, so now we move on to other business. All right? Yep, they're done. You guys can leave. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good luck.
By the fall. Sorry, it's gonna be open by the fall. I didn't say what year.
I want to hear what restaurant.
Burger King.
Yep.
And a shawarma restaurant.
Okay,
Appreciate your time, guys. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Take care.
Okay, so we're moving on to other business. Do we have any other business? No. We do not. All right.
Do
Whoop.
we have Daniel Harris?
No, he has not joined us.
No, didn't he have, I thought he had sent in.
They were resolved.
Oh.
Yeah, we had an email today. Okay, all right, so we're going to move to approval of the minutes, and we have 2 sets of minutes to approve because apparently January's were not properly approved, so we're going to do those again now. So we have the Committee of Adjustment hearing minutes from January 18th, 2023. I suppose we can do this in block?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And we have the Committee of Adjustment hearing meetings from March 8th, 2023. Can I have a mover? Councillor Bruno, and seconder? Councillor Elliott, or sorry, Member Elliott, Member Bruno. All in favor?
Questions?
Oh, sorry.
Because I just saw something that just
Okay, go ahead.
sparked in my mind. Sorry, I apologize. Speak with a loud enough voice without having it be amplified. There was an issue, and Member Beauregard corrected me that conditions have 2 years to be remedied, right? And the issue that we were talking about was the driveway into, and I'm trying to think of what the name of the
248
Port Colborne Street. But the driveway location is not a condition of the consent. It is a violation of a bylaw. So that is not subject to the 2-year condition, right? Because you're in violation of a bylaw and you have to correct it or suffer a fine. And it just popped in my head when I saw that. It's like, okay, I know that you were talking about 2 years for conditions of consent, but that wasn't, right? So in actuality, we should have bylaw down there looking after that property to get them to move that driveway sooner than later, because it's not a condition of the consent, correct? I may be wrong, and I probably am, but it's two different things.
Councilor Bruno, or Member Bruno?
I don't recall in all the years this coming up, but I thought perhaps, whilst it not be a condition of the consent, can you submit a planning application and have it approved if the infringement of a planning bylaw is already noted? In other words, don't you have to have a clean slate before matters can deal with, because the approval is one of the hammers. So I don't know, I think it could be not a condition of consent, but a condition to even receive or deal with an application. I think that's a chief planner question maybe. Or Diana, do you know?
Through you, Deputy Chair. I'll invite Dave, our planner who's joining virtually, to...
Oh, he is virtually, sorry.
Yes,
Okay.
yep, he's on here, so we'll get him to jump in.
That's through you, Madam Chair. That is a great question, and unfortunately, I don't have the exact context of what the application you're referring to. But in my opinion, I think if it's a bylaw issue, it would be dealt with as a separate entity. We deal with that through zoning violation, our regular process through that. With respect to your question on if you need a clean slate to be able to apply, I don't necessarily believe that's the case, because as I think you were kind of alluding to, sometimes the matter can be addressed through the minor variance or, for example, a zoning bylaw amendment application. So I think I'd have to look into that further. I don't have a definite answer on that, if you need a clean slate to be able to apply, if that makes sense.
Fair enough? Okay, thank you. And just for the record, Member Beauregard has come back to the meeting. Sorry. Sorry, Eric. Okay, and Eric, it looks like you had something there you wanted to add.
Through you, Madam Chair. Also, I think what could be done as well is, it's not required, but you could make it a condition that the driveway conform to the zoning bylaw. Oh, not the zoning, but that particular bylaw. Although it's implied that it should, it just adds an extra layer to make sure that it's done, because it puts the onus on the applicant to make sure it's done, and someone from the city would have to review and make sure that condition is actually completed. So,
Just one comment though, if you put it in as a condition, then they get to 2 years. Right? If you just leave it as a planning bylaw infringement, you can mandate that it be done forthwith, because it is an actual safety concern, right? It's not something that was just, yeah, okay, we'd like you to move it. It's done for safety reasons. You can't be that close to the corner. So to give somebody 2 years to move it is flying in the face of why it's there in the first place.
okay.
Member Bruno, then Member Beauregard.
Madam Chair, I'm just wondering, because I don't recall this, when someone comes in for an application, was the infraction caught, maybe through you to Dave, was the infraction caught on the review process? So the application is circulated Was that infringement picked up then? It was, sorry, Dave, I didn't know, I didn't realize that. Okay, sorry, just wanted to know that for clarification.
Thank you, Member Bogard.
Through you to Member Elliott. That 2 years would only apply to the clearing of the condition of the consent. The bylaw itself still applies, and they would still have to conform to it. It's just an added layer to make sure that staff do look at it and bylaw gets to it. So they still have to conform to that bylaw immediately. It's just a matter of making sure it gets looked at some point in time. It doesn't get overlooked.
Sorry, that's the biggest hurdle, to make sure that bylaw gets out
Flagging it
and,
should do
and
that.
has them rectify. I don't even know if that's happened. We should kind of inquire into that to find out.
Possibly the secretary could follow up on that?
Yes, I'd be
And
happy to do that.
And sorry, Madam Chair, through you to our secretary, there were 2 issues that were planning bylaw. One was the driveway and the grading, the lot grading. Yeah, so if we could talk to somebody that works in this building, that would be great.
Thanks. Okay, Member Bogard.
Through you, Madam Chair. Just another topic to kind of go off of what's being discussed here. The Committee of Adjustment through the Planning Act does have the ability, if council were to delegate the authority, to permit variances beyond that of the Planning Act. So, yeah, so if like a sign, for example, like a sign bylaw, you can get a variance from that, or potentially other ways. So it is something that could be looked into.
Very good, thank you. All right. Hopefully there's no more discussion on this, and I can call for a vote. Did you have something else? No. Okay. All right, so let's, can we have a vote on the acceptance of the minutes? We have mover, yeah, okay. Member Bruno moves it, Member Elliott seconds it. All in favor? There we go. All right, it has been carried. All right, seeing no other business, I will ask for an adjournment. Member Bruno? Member Beauregard? All in favor? There we go, we are adjourned.